Hello guys and welcome back to another video, and today we will be looking at some of the true sizes of Asian countries. So I've done most continents. I was going to do Asia, but then something was playing in the background, something I had to get rid of it. So now we are doing it again. Let's go ahead and start off with the largest Asian country with some land in Europe. Of course, that is Russia. Let's go ahead and select them. And Russia on this map, it is the largest country on Earth. But do you know just how large it is? Well, let me tell you, what you see here on the map right now is not how large they are. They are in the northern hemisphere by far, and if you drag them down to the equator, they are much smaller. I am not saying that they are small by any means. They are a massive country. Putting them over Canada, you can see they are much larger than the US. But if you drag them down to the equator line, they are much smaller than you would expect. Their total size is a few Australias, a couple Chinas, a couple US's. But when you put them up here, they look like they could destroy the entire world just through sheer size. I also love putting countries up here. It ruins and just makes the world go crazy. Russia, massive, but not as big as you could have believed it was. As for China, well, here goes the big argument. Who's larger, China or the US? Well, that depends. Do you count lakes and rivers as their land area? Well, no, it's not by land, but it is inside of their territory. Do you count coastal area? Do you count their national water, few miles out from their coastline? If not, then China is the undisputed winner. If you do count lakes, then it's a bit more fought over since they have all the Great Lakes region. And if you count coastal areas, then the US is going to do a lot better. But normally a lot of people do say China is larger and the US is just being the US. Putting it over Europe, it can span nearly the entire continent just like the US. And if we rotate it on its back, that's not what I meant to do. Where is it? There we go. It can cover nearly the entire continent with land to spare. Probably could cover the entire continent except for the Russian part, so like a bit over half of it, just by being there. Put it over Africa and the equator, once again, it is a lot smaller than you'd expect. Put it over Brazil and it's barely larger. Actually, it's quite a bit larger, but putting it over Africa, you can still definitely see a difference. As for some countries that are smaller than you might expect, well, I've done one like this in my just all around countries that are larger than you think, and that is Indonesia. They are right on the equator line, right over here, right on the line. As you can see, it passes right through. But if you put it up, it can span through all of China. Put it over the US, it can span the entire country with land to spare. Could go from San Francisco over to New York. It can go from Alaska to Nova Scotia. And if you orient it correctly, it can go from Alaska to the contiguous 40. It can go from Alaska to Florida if you put it on the map correctly. Right there, Alaska to Florida. And if you'd like some European scale, it can span the entire continent with ease. From Iceland to Iran. This country is massive. Put it over Russia as soon as I fix it again. It can span over half the country. Put it right there on Moscow. It can go from Moscow to China, to Inner Mongolia. Put it right up here near Beijing. It can stretch from Beijing through Kazakhstan to Russia. If you'd like some African scale, well, that's going to be about the same, so we're not going to do that. But putting it, once again, just over Europe, Madrid to Qatar. It is a massive country, and people really underestimate it. And then, of course, India, I believe, the 7th largest country by a good amount, but still a large country and a very, very populous and densely populated one. Put it over the US, it may not look too massive, but this is still a sizable amount of land. You don't like US comparison? Put it over Europe. Put any country over Europe, and Europe will look tiny while that country looks massive. This can cover the UK, Germany, France, Italy, Spain. I have never seen that. I've never done the math on that, and I can still comfortably say it. India is very large. I don't want to say massive, but they are still quite a large country. Normally people talk about their population. Well, you should be talking about this land area too. May not be the largest country, but it is used to the best of potential, especially up here in the north. If you'd like to see a few more, we can look at a few Middle Eastern countries. Let's start off with Iran. Normally the Middle East isn't talked about in Asia, but most people know that it is. They just talk about it like, as I said, the Middle East. But putting it over the US, it can stretch from Denver past New Orleans. It can stretch from Minneapolis, swear to God, the city, from Milwaukee down to Bermuda. It can stretch from Tampa to northern Nebraska. It's larger than Texas, larger than California, but if I had to guess, about the same size as Alaska, our largest state, and a fifth of the U.S.'s land area. One of the largest and most powerful Middle Eastern countries, and an important world player. From there we can also look at Turkey, which is in this world. Turkey? I don't know how to say that. I still just say Turkey, and this game changed it on the map, but not when searching it up. They are a pretty average sized country, but even Turkey, a country that has land in Europe, you put them over France, you put them over Germany, you put them over Poland, and they look so much more massive. Let's look at one final example of that, and that is going to be Saudi Arabia. Actually, no, I want to do a few more. Put Saudi Arabia over Africa, they're similar to the Deer Sea. Put it over Europe, and they can stretch from northern UK down to Serbia. Yeah. Put it from London, it can go from London to Sofia in Bulgaria. It can go from London down to the Greek coastline. Put it over Russia, and the scale gets a bit worse, but it can still stretch from Moscow down to Azerbaijan. Once again, if you ever want comparison, it is larger than all of the Balkan region combined. Easily. It can cover all of Italy, all of the Adriatic, all of the Black Sea. Saudi Arabia is still a large country. Now for the other ones, I wanted to state specifically Japan. You know, these are the islands you normally see, but if you put it over the US, it is a lot larger than you'd expect. It can stretch from Maine, from Canada, down to Miami. Yes, that might be because of some tiny islands at the bottom, but you know what? It still counts and it still works. If we turn it onto its side, then we can see it can stretch all the way from Portland down to the Mexican border. And if we put it completely sideways, it can stretch from Los Angeles all the way to Birmingham in Alabama. For some European comparison, counting all of their tiny islands, it can go from the very edge of Brittany and Brest all the way over to the Black Sea, all the way over to Sevastopol in Crimea. It can stretch from London, UK, to the Russia-Ukrainian border. It is a fairly long country that is normally not told so much, although as much as it is long, it is not very large. It is actually quite the small country. This map, I think it might still not even be perfect. Even if you put it all the way north, it stands no chance against Greenland, Canada, or the US. It is long, but it is thin. Putting it up against everyone's favorite thing country, Chile, it does not really quite compare. It can stretch from northern Chile down to about the end of their population zone, but Japan is still a recognizable country. From there, let's look at another two countries that are right next to the equator, and these are just going to be quick. The Philippines, who I just want to put them over Europe. Once again, it is the best way to get scale if you ask me, because everyone overestimates Europe's size. They can stretch up from Denmark down to Bosnia and Herzegovina. It can go from Rome up to Sweden. It can go from London, from London to Algiers. Countries close to the equator do not get enough just acknowledgement for their size because they are right next to that. Even Malaysia, not a very large country. Put it over Europe. Oh my god, it just doubled in size. If it can stretch from Paris all the way to Kiev, then it deserves some recognition. Of course, some of these later countries have been smaller ones, but I do still hope you enjoyed this video, and goodbye.